Morning, everybody. Can you all hear me? My name is Nkululeko Khumalo. My subject matter is on biographical and curatorial narration of black artists from the VAL region, of a black artist from the VAL region from 1980 to 1994, reflection of the works of Gamakhulu Diniso. I call him Gamakhulu Diniso. I call him Ubabu Gamakhulu Diniso because he's my elder, and how we were brought up, we need to show respect to our elders. Ubabu Gamakhulu is a very interesting man, and that's the reason why I did my research on him. He's well known actually in the performance art, and nobody knew that this man, when he started his career, he started as a visual artist. He actually started in Roxdrift in the 1970s, late 70s. And one of his predecessors was Bongi Matsose, who passed on last year. And it's quite a sad story because Bongi Matsose actually, he was one of the first few black artists who actually went to Roxdrift, Roxdrift was one of the first first art schools which accommodated black students within the apartheid era, and it was based in KZN at Dundee, which was quite interesting. As Buleng was talking with, I'm also relating to Dundee. And in terms of Ubabu Gamakhulu, when I was commissioned to do a catalogue at the Vaal University of Technology, and in 2009, I was researching the history of black visual artists within the Vaal Triangle. And I couldn't find not even one name. But growing up, I knew Ubabu Gamakhulu Diniso, I knew Babu Bongi Matsuse, I knew Spinya Hlalele, who is Shadrach Hlalele. Many people know him as Shadrach Hlalele, whose work is at the Iziko Museum. But yet the history of South Africa has nothing on these people, which are black visual artists from the Vaal region, which in the 80s was called Vaal Triangle. So I became quite fascinated in this history. Why there's such a huge gap in that, And then when you go, we've got a museum called the Technorama Museum, which it's got a very rich political history because the Vaal, I don't know how many of you know where the Vaal Triangle is based at. The Vaal was one of the first place that took part in the Sharpeville shooting in terms of the struggle, the liberation of the struggle. And then we found the president, de Klerk, originally actually also comes from the Vaal, but yet you don't find much history on that. And then we had the Ripatong, the Mangaleme shooting, we had the zone, the Sebokeng shooting. It's got a very rich history in the political struggle, but nothing on the visual artists. And then I went to the Technorama Museum, and then I'm looking for these resources on the black visual, and all they had was things on de Klerk, things on people like Sheila Santilano, who's a white woman. As I was doing my undergrad, it's like, why are you producing this work? And I'm thinking, who is this man who's constantly irritating me? He keeps saying we must do collaborations and blah, blah, blah. But I know that usually when he's nice, he's constantly looking for something, Then I'll go, yes, Babu Gamakhulu, what do you want? It's like, can you print for me? So this is the relationship that we started to establish. So it became a negotiation, because that's another challenge that I faced, because Obaba Gamakhulu will not just do something for you without getting something in return. So it was a huge struggle for me to actually work with him, because one minute it's like, oh, no, if you do this, I'll give you this, You do it, then later it's like, no, you know what, did I say that? Maybe we should, look at something else. Maybe you didn't understand me. So it has come to a point when I have a meeting with him, or we have these conversations. I started recording the conversations we had with my cell phone, so I can hold him accountable for what he spoke about. So, you can read through the PowerPoint. I'm just going to highlight some of the things that I'm talking about. So, and then as the years went by, since 2009, and he'll come with his kids, because he also does not believe in the education system that the current system is offering. So he's homeschooling his own kids, which I found very fascinating. He's like, why are you homeschooling? It's like, no, there was one teacher, Nantina, meaning he used to irritate me. You know, certain things I'll stick to the African language that they can't be translated into English. So he will say, no, these kids are, like they're irritating me, or no, the education is irritating me, so there's a reason why I'm educating my own kids. Then I asked him, okay, what syllabus are you using? He was blank. What are you doing? He was blank. And I'm thinking, okay, how do you get it? So he'll bring them to the university and he'll speak to certain individual lecturers and say, can you please teach my kids? And then he'll teach them. The kids are very good in terms of performance art. But I said, but the education system, you don't just need performance art. There's so much more. He's like, no, they'll learn. With the internet, with the TV, they will learn. So till currently, the students are still being self-taught without any syllabus. Okay. So, which I also found quite interesting as well. As the years went by, it became, as I indicated, that our relationship was constantly a negotiation. So then I decided that Babu Gamakhulu, then he refused to work with me when I was dealing with all the other VAL artists, because then I asked him why. He says, I've always spoken to them that we must do collaborations, but they seem to be moving slow or they're not interested. So if you are working with these people, I'm not going to work with you. So I had to cut other people, and then I said, okay, I'll work with you. And he's his own archivist, because Babu Gamakhulu has works from 1975 till current. He's got Abo Sam Hlengeta when they were students at Rockstrift. He's got Abo Peter Clark. He's got a lot of collection on Peter Clark's works. He's got his own archives on his own works. He's got Shadrach Hlalele, which is quite sad, because Shadrach Hlalele has gone mentally disturbed a bit, you know, ever since he returned from Germany. And then he's got Ubongi Matsose, which was quite sad, because Bongi Matsose, everybody owns a Bongi Matsose besides a Bongi Matsose. So, which was quite sad, you know, this man who's got such a rich, I mean, Rockstrift was you were supposed to complete at Rockstrift in 3 years. They said when he reached 2 years that they can't teach him anything more. He's overqualified for the school that he was at. And this is part of the history which is not documented, you know. So I decided that I wanted to write about these people. Then we found people like Stephen Sack, Sue Williams, Gavin Young, and the list goes on, who wrote about, who wrote about black artists in the 80s, but they left out a very important portion of it, you know. I'm not saying that they didn't do a good job, but later I found out that the same people that we studied about when I was doing my undergrad, I found out some of them didn't even write those papers. They commissioned somebody else and they just put their names on it. So, which makes me wonder that, I know that especially, I know I'm not supposed to say this, with Sue Williams, with some of, like, with Sue, like with Sue Williams' books, I find out that Ashraf Jamal wrote them, you know, such things. Then you find out with Stephen Sack had this collection, that it's still apparently still sitting at JAG, that he was just saying, no, do this, do this, do that. And this being told by another person working at JAG at that time. So it was quite shocking in terms of our history that is going on, what is going on within our literature, you know, in terms of the literature. Because I think it's about time that us black people, we represent ourselves in the best way we want to represent ourselves. And I like what Tatenda was saying as well, that she's starting to document, she's starting to write, because it is very, very important. Then the history is not diluted, or it's not wrongly falsified. And we decided last year, just before I did a curatorial practice, we're going to take a drive to Rockstrift, because for me, I felt like this is where it all began, you know. So we took a drive. It was me, Babu Gamakhulu, the guy who was helping me to video, and one of his sons. We get to Rockstrift. He hasn't been there for 40 years. And as we were driving, we video shooting him, we get to Rockstrift. the excitement in his face, you know, and relating how the whole place looked like. And what also made me quite sad that people have written about Rockstrift, and some people are in this room, and nobody actually took the time and went to Rockstrift and said, I want to do a documentation on Rockstrift. That means Rockstrift becomes responsible for this documentation. But it's all over. And one another thing with the Philippa Hobbs and Elizabeth Rankin book that they wrote on Rockstrift. Okay, first thing that I also found that the dates were not corresponding, you know, the birthdays. I mean, if according to that book, when Ubabu Gamakhulu was there, he will be 2 years of age. And he's a student at Rockstrift, you know. So in terms of, how do I put it? In terms of the timeline, but not just the timeline, the falsified information that they got, you know, not without verifying the certain things. Oh, but as well, looking at that as well. In terms of Ubabu Gamakhulu, which was also something very interesting, he's got 4 different IDs, which is quite interesting. He never had an ID till he got married. And then he's got 4 different IDs. Then I asked him, when were you born? He's like, I don't know. Because every time I spend time with him, that's when I realized what made my research quite challenging as well. The information constantly kept on changing as well. Because 1 minute it's this, but then he always very manipulative. He'll look at, okay, what are you talking about? So I can see what I can benefit or what is it that I can gain. So I was constantly in a negotiation. It's like, but Babu Gamakhulu, you said this the other day. It's like, oh, I can't remember, you know. Because I know in 2 days he'll say exactly what he really wants, you know, in terms of, or maybe you need to give his kids a printmaking class in terms of silk screen, something that he can benefit, not just him and his family, because it's him and his 2 sons. But at the same time, with the ID, he changes his names. He decided he's no longer Gamakhulu, it's now Iga Elukhulu. Then I asked him, why do you do that? He's like, no, I decided my sons are Izanyaniso, Nkululeko, now I'm Iga Gamakhulu. And I'm thinking, what does it mean? It's like, no, it rhymes with my child's names. So it's quite fascinating. But at the same time, this man's artworks were used for covers. I only put 2 books, but there were more books that his paintings were used, or his drawings were used for, his artworks. The Unbroken Songs by Ezekiel Mpahlele and Frank Chikwana, and there's also another book by Eskia Mpahlele as well. But I'm thinking, these books were written in the 80s. I ordered this book from Kalahari, and I paid, I think, 700 Rand, and the pages were falling apart, and somebody else stole it. So it was quite sad. This man preserved this book since the 80s. And how he packages, for me, I felt that how he stores his artworks, his books, his articles, for me, it was very, very important. You know, it's a pity that 20 minutes can't do justice to showing you everything. Then, and then I realized that he, as much as he was not known as a visual artist, that's where, for me, I felt like I needed to document Gamakhulu as a visual artist. But then it became another challenge, because Gamakhulu does not work in isolation without his performance, because you'll be talking to him and you're like, hey, clever, you know, and he's constantly, like, I felt like his life is constant, it's a constant performance, you know, on its own. So now, and I'm like, but can I really do it? So I decided to have, when I did my MA at the Point of Order, I decided that Babu Gamakhulu, oh yeah, getting his artworks on the show, it was also another negotiation, you know, that took months. So for me to go to Rockstrift, he manipulated me to drive to Rockstrift because he hasn't been there for 40 years. So, and then, okay, and then on its own, okay, I'm gonna go through. Even that was also quite another challenge, because when I got there, but I was glad that I actually went there, because I could relate and I could speak, and some of the challenges that Rockstrift was facing, you know, so which was quite important, because you get people like Abo Semhlengwa who constantly go there every 3 to 4 months, which is quite nice. Then we visited some of his friends who were still there, and I felt like I was one of the students at that time. Okay, you can just read through because I'm running out of time. Okay, okay, this was one of the posters. I titled the exhibition on Diniso in 3D, because this man, when I thought of this idea, I thought of 3D. You know when you walk through a sculpture and you're looking at it? And then I was asked, why 3D? Why not 10D or 5D or something D? I was like, why? It's like, because you just explained that he's not just an archivist, a performer, a visual artist, a teacher, an educator, and he's more than that. Then I said, you know what? For me, he's an all-rounder. That's the reason why I titled that. And then, no, there are certain slides that are missing, sorry. There are certain slides that I can't find. Okay, but we had images of the interviews I also did in terms of that, where I interviewed his first student. And all his students who went through his entire program are extremely successful. He taught them to be confident in themselves, in terms of take ownership of who you are. Because this was a black art school in the 80s in Sharpeville at the Resource Center. And I interviewed one of the other a couple of ex-students actually, which was Nkululeko Khumalo, who owns his own tourism company now, and on the tourism of the VAS. And this resource, which I felt like the academics and the scholars should have, this man owns, you know. Gamakhulu owns his own. He's got every newspaper article that was published on him since the 70s till current. He archived. Where I interviewed the first lecturer, the first HOD who hired him in a former university, where he speaks about Gamakhulu, where he will not have a script in terms of his performance. He'll come and he'll be hired to do a performance. Then you could see he'll do setups, and then the script will just come from the audience, you know, which was quite interesting. And he'll engage with the audience, which he also did at the performance, because he also, within the Diniso in 3D at the point of order, he also did a performance where he also engaged with the audience, which was something quite fascinating. And then in terms of that as well, I also had interviewed what's this man? Bongi Matsose, where he said, he actually trained Ubabu Gamakhulu, you know. But I also felt there were also limitations in terms of my research. Every time I spoke about his family, no, I don't have a family. He has actually divorced his mother. And I asked him why. He's like, they don't listen to me. I was like, why? What is it that they don't listen to? No, they want these rituals that I don't understand, you know. So, which is quite fascinating that, okay, I didn't know, okay, I've heard of stories where you can divorce your family, but he's constantly cutting people off, because if he doesn't benefit anything from anybody, he says it's a waste of time for him. And then in terms of that, so I decided, no, I'm not going to speak about his family, because it was quite a sensitive issue, because his brother was also of the Sharpeville 6. Every time we speak about him, he tends to deviate, you know. He doesn't want to talk about it. Then I decided I'm not going to talk about his family, his marriage, and some of the things I actually found them out from the archivist of verse. He's like, oh no, Andrea Sechal, who used to write about the performance of Babu Gamakhulu. And she says, no, this is the reason. You know, for me, it became quite fascinating with this lady followed Gamakhulu, but in terms of the performance. And when she came and related some of the stories, which I felt like, wow, I wonder why he didn't share this with me. But then I realized certain things were very personal for him. Then I decided that's for another time. And then I also interviewed, this one is very interesting, Majozi. Majozi, his real name is Kenneth Kekane. He's now in the performance, but he's also a visual artist. He found a sketchbook, Skababu Gamakhulu, in the early 80s, and he kept it for so long. Then I remember when we were in school, he said he's got a sketchbook, Gamakhulu. So I asked him, he's like, I don't have, you know. I said, no, man, I remember. He said, no, I don't have. Then later on, he says, okay, tit for tat. I had to borrow him my camera so I could get the sketchbook, you know. So he gave me the sketchbook. Then Gamakhulu found out about it. Now he says, no, but you didn't get it from, you got it from me and I want it back from you. I was like, but it's not yours to begin with, you know. He needs it. But he said, oh, Gamakhulu, why would you leave your sketchbook? He's like, no. When he got a job at the, I think, Vert School, he went there to go and work, and then he left everything. So I guess the students decided to help themselves. Then when he came back, there was a lot of students who are no longer there, and etc. etc. So he decided no, he will continue with the student. So he actually worked in universities. He worked with schools. He's worked. I mean, there's a video as well. I don't understand what happened, but there's also a video that was also played by Unduka. Duka runs the school of Vert, of the TV at Vert. He was also one of the students, is Gamakhulu, you know. So you can actually see his footprints all over the country, what he has done, but yet this man is still not recognized in terms of the visual arts. Thank you.
Thanks, Nkululeko, for that. I will